All right.
You can.
Good. Everyone can hear everybody now. I want to introduce the rest of my panelists and I want to get this thing going. I'm super excited, but before I even talk about myself, I want to give a big thanks to the Balachics and to Aradani Studios for hosting AradaniCon in general, because I think those of us who work conventions and attend conventions as our main hobby are really, really missing that right now. And honestly, I think even though I
Yeah.
get to a point at least once a year where I'm kind of burnt out on cons and I want to sit in my house by myself and not see people for a while, this has been enough. And I would like to interact with my friends again. So this has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Balachics, and everyone else who has made this happen. It is much, much appreciated. But I will move on into introductions, I guess. I will be really conceited and start with myself. I'm Ginger, for those of you who haven't met me or talked to me before. I'm a cosplayer and costumer and prop maker in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm also a burlesque performer and I do a little bit of TV and film work as well. And so that's what I do. And I am the least important person on this panel because I've surrounded myself by people with people who are much, much more eloquent and interesting than I am. So we will
Oh, we'll
start.
see about that. I don't agree with that.
All right. Well,
Definitely disagree.
it's my
Definitely
channel, so I
disagree.
get to make that decision. So
Oh,
that's how this works. So we're gonna start with the lady currently at the top. We're gonna start with Raven. Raven, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Hello, people that I can't see if they're here or not.
Oh, they're here.
Uh, I'm Christina. I go by Bewitched Raven on the internet because I work in HR and I am trying very hard to keep my two worlds separate. I've been cosplaying since 2010. I've got a degree in theater. I don't know. I'm all around weirdo.
That's true.
Da 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 da. So yeah.
Excellent.
I've worked from home all day and literally just clocked out. So
No,
for
I
me.
told someone earlier this panel is either going to be us talking about cosplay positivity or everyone watching us just slowly break down into some sort of insanity from having been
Yeah.
stuck at home. So I'm not sure.
Oh my
We'll
gosh.
see where
Yeah.
it
I
goes.
got an hour of sleep
Yeah.
today, so we'll see. Yeah, definitely. That's a possibility.
Good. Tanisha, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Okay, sure. I'm Tanisha. I'm an amateur cosplayer from Memphis, Tennessee. And for the past several years, I have been the coordinator for the costuming track at Mid-South as well as a panelist for a lot of the panels and some panels at MCSC as well. I'm also the co-founder of what was Geek Brunch Memphis, is a networking organization that's targeted at adult female geeks to give them spaces and encounters in which they feel safe being geeky and to link them with like-minded people, basically. We're actually about to go expand out from under the Geek Girl Brunch umbrella and become our own organization. So we're in a little bit of
Independent.
flux right now. Yes, independent women. Exactly.
That's great. And for a little bit of context, I think the first time, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the first time I ever met you, Tanisha, was at Mid South Con, and it was actually doing your version of this panel. I'm pretty sure I was a panelist on cosplay
Probably.
positivity with you. And
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember at the time, this is a panel I had been doing at other conventions. And I just felt like you were such a kindred spirit. Here we were, both trying to promote the same thing. So that was really exciting for me. So I
Yes.
knew when this opportunity came along, since I don't usually get the chance to bring people to my panels from farther away than, the Nashville area or wherever the con may be. I was like, ooh, I'm going to get Tanisha. So thank you for being here.
Ooh,
And last but
yes. Thank you for
certainly,
inviting me.
of course, last but certainly not least, Dee, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Dee Volpe. I am co-founder of Cosplay Collective here in Middle Tennessee. We're a nonprofit. We do several different things. We of course, take cosplayers to hospitals and senior assisted living and do events all around town. We're the ones who provide the characters for Boo at the Zoo. We also are trying to ramp up our socializing with cosplayers maybe and helping with cosplayers to learn how to build their costumes and everything. We also are probably the original group to do what we call a hospitality sweep, which was the first time we did it, I think was 6 years ago at Indie PopCon. Well, the very first Indie PopCon, I don't know if it was 5 or 6. But what we do is we bring everything you could possibly need to repair costumes to cons. We have anywhere from a table to, like MomoCon, we do their entire hospitality suite room, where we bring anywhere from a sewing machine on down to needle and thread. There's plans also to have Cosplay Collective help with a makerspace and everything, a new one.
Yes.
So specifically for cosplayers.
Yes.
No, you funny. Thank you.
I didn't want to jump the
That's right.
video center, so I wanted to make sure you knew you rock.
I think
Their
And you're sweet.
Cosplay Collective
Y'all are
is
sweet.
amazing, and everybody should support them because
Yeah.
what they do is awesome.
Absolutely. I think that
I'm very, very, very proud of all our members. Everybody's just wonderful. I'm very proud to say that they're taking over now. You know, I get to sit back a little bit more. It's been a rough 5 years, but finally it's definitely taken off, and there's more coming down the road with it.
I can certainly say I don't think that the cosplay community would be what it is in Nashville without Cosplay Collective and without Dee and Nancy.
Thank you. Sorry, Nancy's not here.
I've not only been saved on an oh my god, this thing just fell off my costume, please help me level in the middle of a convention, but also just an oh my god, my sanity is unraveling at the end of this day at a convention, please help me, Dee. So
Well, there's a reason they call me Cosplay Mom.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you guys all for being here. I'm super, super grateful and honored to be surrounded by you lovely, lovely folks. I want to give a little bit of background on kind of what cosplay positivity is before we really dig into some discussion topics. And then, just for those of you watching at home, once we get through some discussion, we will take about 10-15 minutes at the end for questions and answers, which we will do through the chat. So if you want to start thinking about your questions, certainly save them for the end. I don't want them to get buried in the chat and never acknowledged. So that's kind of how we'll do things. We're kind of working out this virtual con thing as we go, so bear with us, I suppose. So cosplay positivity at its heart and core is this idea of promoting
Right, which one of you is digging through something?
It's Dee.
And not
Okay,
on
that
mute.
might be me. Might be me.
My hands are free.
There now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Raven coming in with
I had to find something.
All right,
I was like, I can't hear anything.
thanks.
It was one sheet of paper.
Very large, crinkly sheet of paper.
It sounds like it's just like the digital age.
So, at its heart, what we're here to talk about is the idea of promoting the positive aspects of cosplay. So, that includes how to champion inclusivity, and that includes all races, gender identities, body shapes, ages, differently abled, anything. How do we promote an inclusive space? How do we take care of ourselves and work on the negative self-talk and feelings that we unfortunately all seem to feel? How do we help each other and how do we help ourselves? And then also kind of how do we handle this idea of gatekeeping and fandom gatekeeping? um, we really want to in this panel kind of shine a light on negative behaviors so that we can not only help educate others and hold each other accountable, but so that we can hold ourselves accountable as we move forward. There may be things that you're doing either to yourself mentally regarding cosplay or conventions, or that you're doing to others that you don't realize how harmful and damaging they may be. So sometimes it's just one of those things that you have to hear it from somebody else before you go, oh crap, I guess I probably shouldn't do that. And then also to just have the tools and education to go forward into cons and help educate others around you and promote the idea that cosplay is for everybody, because that's ultimately what it is. So first off, I want to talk about, how do you guys think that the rising popularity of cosplay and the boom that we've seen, I know all of us have been involved in costuming and cosplay since before the boom, honestly, and so we've all watched it explode, and we've felt that on a deep personal level,
Yeah.
and particularly on social media. How do you think that that has affected cosplayers' ability and conventions' ability to foster positive atmospheres? Do you think it's helped? Do you think it's hurt? Do you think it's a little bit of both? What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's just like it is for everything. People can hide behind it and stuff. So they're a little more apt to be a little negative to people when they feel like it, whether they really are or not. They may just, you know, that's something that they feel empowered doing. Um, Cosplay, I think, is really meant to be a live in person kind of thing. Uh, but
She says while we sit on the internet doing a panel.
yeah, I know. That's true. But you know, it's easy when you're anonymous to criticize and stuff. So I wish people understood social media a little bit better about how it you can't get inferences from what you type and all that. Uh, but the positive thing about it is that yeah, you get out there and you get to see more and you get to, you know, find other people that are in your interests also for as far as cosplay going, the way you build or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's there. It's always going to be there now. So I I'm glad it is, but I wish that I'm more than a half a century old. So I was, you know, around before all of this. So I love it, but I also understand that people may not understand what I'm saying, but I also have the right to say it. So, you know, it's just it's improved it to a point. Let's put it that way. When it comes
think-
to being able to see it, um, a lot of people need to
I really
check
like
what
that
they say sometimes.
Yeah.
I like that
Yeah.
what you were saying about your right to say something,
Mm-hmm.
because that's becoming kind of this new thing I'm seeing is you know, yeah, it's the internet and people are going to say horrible things, but the reality is like, do that on your social media. You don't have a right to go to somebody else's and do that. And I see so many people be like, well, that's my First Amendment right. And I'm like, do you understand the First Amendment? That's for the government controlling what you say, not you just being an asshole. So
True
no,
that.
you don't have the freedom of speech on what is essentially like my property, my ownership, my arena, to come in and say that. You can in your arena. Feel free. So I think that's
I
starting
literally
to
had
step
this
up.
happen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
literally had this happen the other day, like 2 days ago. I made a post on my Facebook page and I got a message from somebody saying, you know, maybe you shouldn't say stuff like it doesn't seem like you're all inclusive in that. And I said, well, Cosplay Collective is not the Volpe.
Yeah.
And everybody that's a member of Cosplay Collective is welcome to have their opinions, but when we're together, that's not what it's about. You know what I mean? I love everybody in our group, but there might be a few that I may not spend time with other
You're
than
not
cosplay.
required to like everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
especially in cosplay, you're not required to like everyone. You are required to to be a decent human being.
Mm-hmm. And I would have
That's
never
true.
posted what I
Yeah.
posted on Cosplay Collective.
Right. Tenitia, how have you
Yeah.
seen the rising popularity of cosplay kind of change our ability to remain positive? Have you seen any effects in either direction?
First of all, can you
Yeah.
tell
I
us
kind of
what's
seen
hanging behind you,
it's
because it looks like somebody's watching us from behind you.
I'm sorry, it's like a cardboard cutout of it's like what was the wife from the Munsters? It's that's on my sister's door. And her Buffy Sunnydale steak, that's what it is. And they just kind of
I
I forget they're
love
there,
it.
honestly. I'm sorry. It does look like some creepy chick is looking over my shoulder. Sorry about
I'm
that.
into it.
It works.
But that's the kind of how our general decor goes in this house. Um, but yeah, I think it's a good and a bad thing because, like has been highlighted, you can get some of the negativity in from just like random people who maybe are just coming into the topic of cosplay or who are maybe don't really know how things go. But it's also expanded it in terms of accessibility. Because like for me, I grew up on a farm in rural Tennessee, and knowing that like the kids nowadays who are in that same environment, they can hop on the computer and they can find cosplayers and find conventions and see that there is this thing out there that they wanted to do. Because I remember, I think I was in middle school the first time I asked my family about going to a convention. They had no idea what it was. I barely knew what it was, and it was kind of like, well, if this is the thing you want to do, we're going to go do it. And it's and it's this whole brand new thing that you realize there are people out there like me, and there are people out there who enjoy these things and who want to do these things, and I can network with them, and I can find them, and I can get advice from them, and they can get advice from me, and we can get ideas from one another, and so that's definitely a lot of the good, I think, and you have to take the good with the bad,
Mm-hmm.
because along with that exposure, you are going to get the trolls and all the stuff like that. But I think as long as you have the good people coming in as well, you can outweigh or at least endure it. And generally, the trolls, if you will get run out, on the rails.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's always a good thing to know if you have enough good people around. Because I know that happened on one of the groups on Facebook earlier this week because somebody had posted something about what do you think about people who are older cosplaying, and they're like, oh, I think it's weird. And apparently, I didn't see the post
I
before it got
saw that.
taken down, but apparently they got completely railroaded, rightfully so. It's kind of like I turned 40 earlier this year, and it's like I can guarantee you I'm not going to stop being weird and nerdy anytime soon.
Right.
Oh yeah,
So
Just getting
and
started.
how do you know how old someone is? People assume my age all the time, and then they hear how old I am, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do. Anybody can do this. It's okay." And like, I'm 34. I'm about to be 35. But when I'm at a convention, and Ginger and Dee know this, I'm silly and bubbly, and I come off a lot younger, and people are like, "Oh, okay, young people thing." And it's like, nope, you can be silly and be whatever you want, however you want. Like,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I
it's
think
like you're never too old to enjoy the things that you like. Yes.
absolutely. You don't age out of playing, right? You don't we shouldn't have the expectation of aging out of that. It's unrealistic and unfair, I think. Um,
And
Yeah.
it's what keeps you young,
right,
anyways. I
right.
mean,
I
no, I don't feel my age
I think
because I love what I do.
There you
amen.
go.
I think from my perspective, um, thinking about the boom of cosplay, one of the biggest downsides has been that it has placed certain expectations on what cosplay actually is. It is put parameters on something in a lot of people's minds based on whatever version of cosplay is that they've been briefly exposed to through this burst of popularity. And so I think I've seen kind of a rise of gatekeeping even outside of our community from people who think they have an idea of what it is. These expectations that cosplay is only the one type of cosplay that they've collected on their Instagram feed or something like that. Um, and so I think that that's been really damaging. It's been really challenging to overcome that idea. But the other side of that same coin is we've now become the majority, as nerds, our once
Yeah.
previous, huddled in lockers, selves are now a majority. And I think about, there was a Mark Maron stand-up I was watching recently, and he's talking about some joke or comment he made about nerd culture, and people kind of jumped on him, and he was like, no, like, I'm punching up, like, they're not the minority at this point. And so I think that goes along with what Tanisha was saying, like the access that we now have to the things that we love to do. It's there's so much more, and there's so much more out there for us. But the other side of that is
Yeah.
that it now comes with some sort of global expectation of what it is we do that may or may not be correct, actually. And I find myself having to push against that a lot. The pigeonholing. I post one photo of a character that maybe is more scantily clad, and so then I'm immediately pigeonholed as the sexy cosplayer, which is cool. That feels good too. I don't have any problem with that word. And then I post myself in something that covers me more the next day, and I lose a ton of followers who were just there because they wanted the sexy cosplayer, and then I lose
Yeah.
you can't, like, you get really stuck in one part
You
of the
can't
internet.
win.
And so
Yeah.
that's been a struggle. What are some challenging experiences you guys have either personally had or seen, with negativity? How did it affect you, and how did you handle it? Like, do you have, I know I've been doing this long enough that I have like my handful of like golden, these were terrible moments. And so I don't know if you
Don't
guys
we
do
all?
too.
Don't we all?
But mostly,
Yeah.
I would like to focus on how we made it better. How'd you get through it? Whatever that thing was.
I think it's really nice to acknowledge at first, though, that like everybody fucks up and does stupid shit. And I should have asked if I'm allowed to swear like a sailor on this
My
before
Twitch
we
channel
started.
is 18 and up because I also have a
I
potty
saw
mouth.
that, yes.
I don't know what's happening
But
on the Facebook side, so if your children are
sorry.
watching, we apologize. You might want
But
to earmuff them.
everyone makes mistakes and everybody does dumb stuff and reacts in dumb emotional ways to things, and no one is immune from that or to that. It's how you evolve that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, how you involve and, how you react to, how to
Mm-hmm.
react better to it. Because what I see a lot, especially having the repair room, because a lot will come in and if something breaks, to me, they'll start talking to me about, well, this person said this or this person said that. And, I'm like, you know, I can give you 20 costumes right off the top of my head that I've had to completely repair at a con or somebody didn't like. And what you have to do is understand that that's their feeling about it.
Yep.
The person standing next to you may feel completely different. So you have to get your mindset into the right response to
Yeah.
those
You have to
types of
realize
things.
too that
And
like
that's
things are
work to
often not
do.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And you have flaws and everything in your costume. There's always going to be,
Mhm.
no matter what it is, little things that you think are not, good or good enough about your costume. And the majority of the time, what we have to realize is that unless we point them out to someone else, they probably aren't going to notice. And so that's kind of a thing that I guess we kind of all have to overcome and have to remember. I know I have some cosplays definitely that look pretty good on the outside, but you turn them inside out and it's like a Frankenstein creation
Yeah.
under there. Like nobody knows because unless you're in a competition or something, nobody's going to be looking at like your scenes
Yeah.
and
But
stuff, and it
why
doesn't
would
really
I line
matter.
anything? I don't line things. It's an extra
Me,
step.
most of the time I don't
No.
either, unless it
Laziness
requires
will
it.
win out in the end, always.
No,
And I know, one negative that that I think we all kind of encounter is we all have those friends that were like, oh well, I didn't know that I could cosplay, or I didn't know if it was okay for me to do this. and then, I saw, so and so doing this, I saw someone else doing this. And that's one reason why I personally like to try to continue cosplaying and being nerdy and doing the things I do, because I've had, so many of my friends and, other people I meet be like, well, I didn't think I could cosplay because I'm larger, or I didn't know I could cosplay because I'm not the same race or color or shade as this character that I wanted to do, or maybe I don't want to do the same, I guess, scantily clad thing or whatever. I can do my own interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
That you can make cosplay whatever you want it to be, and it can be everything for everybody. Really, really. So I kind of try to just be out there, and I think sometimes just by doing our own thing, we're adding more positivity to cosplay than we realize.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I agree. And you know, I think the moral of the story, especially related to doing your own thing, is do it. And like there may be pushback. There may be someone who doesn't think that you look enough like that character for whatever reason, but ultimately that's their opinion, and it clearly wasn't yours, because that's not, you did what you wanted to do. Um, and a lot of times it is easier said than done. I know everyone on this panel, and probably most, if not all of you out there, have had something really terrible said about you on the internet or behind your back about your cosplay, or about
Nope.
how you did something, or especially between, there gets this weird ownership over characters. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
cosplay this character, so you
Yeah.
can't do that, and there's this odd competition. I personally get really excited when I find other people in the same costume that I'm in, because
Oh
then I can have
yeah.
this like odd
Same.
multiverse photo around me of the same character.
Yeah.
Um
There's a Nashville cosplayer, and we've started just subtly doing a lot of the same costumes. And now every time we see each other, it's a joke. We're like, are you gonna be me today, or am I gonna be you?
I've wanted to
Who's
do
gonna
it
do
in the burlesque world as well. I think it would be really fun to have a show that's everyone doing their own take on the same character, because we see that over and over again. We see different acts by different people with the same character, and everyone comes at it a different way. And I think that that's really lovely and exciting to watch. But it is hard. It's easier said than done sometimes to say, well, just ignore what people say and move on and let it roll, water off a duck's back kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it hurts. Like it hurts your feelings, and you get all settled down into your feels, and it gets really upsetting. And so for me, I think the thing that has helped me most as I've gone through this, and this has actually been a positive of cosplay becoming more popular and connecting with more people who do this and who are interested in this, is realizing that we're all going through it. For the longest time, I felt like I was very alone in that. Like, why is all this happening to me? Why am I getting attacked? Why are they so mean to me? And then I realized that those trolls are mean to everybody,
Yeah.
and that's awful,
Pretty
and that
much.
sucks. But there are more of us than there are of them. There are more of us who aren't terrible people. And, if we can, I think it's been really helpful for me, at least, to just connect with other people and be able to look them in the eye and say, oh my God, that happened to me too. And I'm so sorry. And you just create this bond in this community that, for me at least, is so much stronger than whatever that hurtful thing was that was said. Yes, it still stings. Like, yes, I remember all the terrible things that I've seen written about me on Reddit and DragonCon page. I remember them, but they they sting less when I know that I'm surrounded by people who do love me and support me, and that have felt that hurt too, because it's ultimately, those comments are not about you, they're about the person who writes
Mm.
them. 100%.
The rule at our house is you're allowed to be petty here. In this house, we are allowed to say terrible things we don't actually mean because we're angry or upset, that they never leave this house. And if you go online or if you go out, you act like an adult, because those emotions are valid, but it's how we use them that you have to think about and consciously make the choice to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I have to say that um, I started cosplaying, gosh, late 80s probably. Serious, actual cosplaying, not just Halloween costumes, but I did the elaborate ones. But I think getting older and going through a lot of that earlier on than a lot of people in the community right now, I'm past that. I still get hurt if somebody doesn't like what I, made or something, or don't like the way I presented it or anything like that. But um, I find myself now, because of being, around, I know most cosplayers in Middle Tennessee. So when I hear something, I have a habit of saying something too, and trying to uh, defend the person, first of all, and then trying to take that person and say, look, you look great. Everybody who even tries this is you doing this. So you need to um, have your self esteem. You need to know that you put your thoughts and your work into it. And just because somebody doesn't like it, it doesn't mean it's not great.
Yeah, and I think
You
you touched on something really important, which is those moments where someone else connects with you and says, "You look great. I love what you did. I love this thing." Um, a lot of times, I've interacted with a lot of people who, I mean, a lot of folks at cons in particular are shy and more introverted, and so there's a hesitation to approach someone you don't know in a costume and say, "Oh my god, you look great." Either I know your character and I'm so excited to see you, or I have no idea who you are, but you look awesome, and I think that that's great. Um, but
I've done that a lot.
those things, those interactions mean so much to people, whether you're just starting out in cosplay. Like that person you just told that to, that might be the first time they've stepped out of their door in cosplay. It might have been a very long, arduous, anxiety driven journey that got them there, and that comment sealed the deal for them. They're in, they're hooked, and they had a great time. And so don't hesitate to tell people that you like what they do or that you think they look great. I don't think that anyone would receive that poorly. we we all really
Yeah.
appreciate the compliments because
Trolls
How
tend to be a
dare you
lot
tell me
louder
how
than the
beautiful I
positive
am?
I
people, but
mean,
there are more of the positive people.
yeah, and I've been really I've been in the entertainment world through theater and dance and things like that my entire life, and it's always been really surprising to me. I've kind of accepted it as a way that things are, but it's always been surprising to me how many of us who choose to do this thing that involves us putting ourselves out in front of people in an ultimately kind of vulnerable way, like we made a thing or we bought a thing and we changed our appearance and we put ourselves out there. We're all we're all actually kind of shy, and like it took a lot of self-work to get us there for some reason. Like sure, there you're gonna find your occasional
Yeah.
super extroverted ham that's just like, I'm here. But that doesn't seem to be most of us. Most of us seem to have like done a lot of it behind closed doors, struggling to get to the outside of the house at the convention in the costume point. So recognizing that and just kind of propping each other up and being kind to each other goes a long way, actually. So keep doing that, guys. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I started out wearing masks with my costumes because I was so shy.
Hmm.
And that's what I encourage kids that come to me and say, I don't think I can do it. I'm real shy in that. I just tell them, pick a costume with a mask. Then you can totally be somebody different. And
Hmm.
I learned to be an extrovert about it with it because I would have never done this
Right.
when I first started cosplaying.
Right. What's some
So
advice that you guys have in addition to that that you might give to someone who says they're nervous to start cosplay because of perceived negativity or a negative reaction? Or I've also had people come to me who had a bad experience and are really hesitant to get back into it because of that. Like what do you have to say to those folks out there?
I think one of the good things for, I guess, kind of combating that is to it ties back into the whole accessibility and how more, I guess, out there cosplay is. You can find a cosplay buddy or a cosplay group or like a good support system.
Mhm.
Those are always the really good
Yes.
people to fall back on times like that. I know, couples that cosplay together, families that cosplay together. A lot of times when I do cosplay with someone, my sister actually is my cosplay buddy. She has a Gryffindor Quidditch costume to my Slytherin, and she's just Jedi to my Sith and everything like that. So if you can find those people, and they will be there for you. They can help you along the way, so that you don't have to do it alone. So it's always really good to have like your army of geeks around you.
Absolutely.
Well, and part of the reason for Cosplay Collective, most everybody in our group is very supportive of each other. And that's why we try to make ourselves known at cons and everything so that people that are leery, they can come up and talk to us and, we can support them.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely was going to use that opportunity to plug Cosplay Collective as well. And not just
Thank you.
Cosplay Collective, but I mean, we have folks watching from all over the place. And
Yeah.
I think for me, at the heart of it, finding a way to cosplay that is positive in and of itself is really helpful. So, charity events, any kind of event that you can be a part of, which is usually through an organization like Cosplay Collective, where you can get out there and not just make a difference, but like working with kids, working in hospitals, those kinds of events, you will never ever come across people who are more excited and more grateful
Mhm.
and who buy who whatever character you are more than that, and it is incredibly rewarding to do that. So I highly recommend, and this is my advice that I give to people who are either hesitant to get started or hesitant to get back into it because of bad experiences, is when you do something like that that is so inherently positive, um, you're hooked. You're back in. Like that
Oh
experience
yeah.
makes it all worthwhile. Whatever negative, even if you aren't ready to put yourself back on the internet or whatever the thing is, that you're not doing anymore because of negative comments that you've gotten, I promise you taking part of charity events in cosplay will absolutely help change your mind about whether or not it's something rewarding to be involved in.
And that's what I was going to say is children's characters. Nothing,
Mhm.
nothing is more rewarding than walking through a con as Pinkie Pie from My Little Pony and some little child's eyes just light up because they have seen their hero. And then they run over and you get to talk with them and their parents want to take a picture. And it's just like that's the most fulfilling thing in the world. Like, so if you're nervous, start there. Nothing's going to make you feel better about yourself than a small child being like, you're my hero.
Yeah, and
That's exactly why we started Cosplay Collective because it happened to me before we had started it. I had somebody come up to me crying about my character that I was wearing, and she was beside herself about it. And she happened to be in a wheelchair, so she was doing Oracle, which I thought was fantastic.
That's
But
awesome. Yeah.
that gave me the whole idea that wait, this can be really important. And I hope other cosplay groups around the country do this, but with our group, I actually encourage people that may not actually cosplay yet to come help us be handlers. You can see what happens and how it works, and this isn't just putting a smile on their faces; it's putting a smile on yours too when you
absolutely,
do this.
absolutely.
Yeah, I know here we have Cosplay Memphis, and they do basically some of the same things. They do charity events, a lot of stuff with the Bonner St. Jude, and they have handlers in addition to the costume people. So they kind of,
Mm-hmm.
have room for everybody. Even if you want to just come and check it out, like you were talking about, and be a handler, or if already have a costume and you want to come in full regalia, it's it's there are so many options and different levels and everything that you can participate in. There's not
And
just
the
one way
levels are
to be
important.
involved. Yeah, there's not just
Levels
one
are
way to be
important.
involved, and you can do what you're most comfortable doing, you know, and still be a part of things.
Yeah, and I think that statement of like levels are important is something that's really good to kind of emphasize. We tend to get stuck in this feedback loop of comparison and perfectionism, and I've heard so many times that folks don't want to get started because they're looking at someone who has far more resources than they probably realize to make these amazing professional level costumes, and that's what they think that cosplay is. They think that that's it. I can't start anywhere. I can't closet cosplay. I can't do this at the level that I actually want to do it because it won't look like this other thing that this other person is doing. And the best way I know to combat that is to just reach out to your group, whatever your nerd herd is. And if you don't have one, work on building one. We're out there. Find us, talk to us, and we will all tell you and cheer you on and affirm you 100,000%. It doesn't matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter if this is your hobby that you are trying for the first time, or if you've been doing it for 15 years and you're still somehow a beginner in your eyes. That's fine. Like, wherever you are is where you're supposed to be. And if you
Yeah.
have goals and you're not there yet, that's a different conversation. And your group can certainly help you figure out how to achieve those and how to move forward. But ultimately, we're all just here to tell you that wherever you are right now is 100% fine, and put yourself out there. Like, taking the first step is the hardest one, I think. And then you have some momentum and you move forward. Um, how do you guys think that cons and other con goers, not necessarily other cosplayers, can help to create safe spaces for all of us who cosplay? How are they helping?
We
How are they
need
failing?
to. I think one of the things that we need to do is kind of what we're doing right now. We need to continue to talk about these issues
Mhm,
and bring up things like cosplay is for everyone, cosplay is not consent, all those things like that.
mhm,
Because especially with like we were talking about the increased exposure of cosplay, and the more people see it and take it in, there's always going to be that new person or the new people who may be at their first con, maybe that's their first convention of that kind, who may not realize, hey, this is a cool, fun thing, but there are also ways, to make sure that it's fun for everyone and that you don't unintentionally make someone else's day look really bad. So it's just, I think, just being vocal about these issues and making sure that we address these things. Even if it's for the umpteenth time, and we're like, do we really need to talk about this again? Or which is sometimes how I feel, because I know we've done the cost positivity panel several years now at Mid South Con, and every now and then I'm kind of like, do we still need to do this? And I'm like, yes, we
mhm,
do. We still need to talk about all these things. We still need to address all these issues, and it always ends up being so moving for some people because they're like, I didn't know I was included, and now I know I'm included. And there's always going to be that person. It may be old hat for you, but it's always new for someone else, or maybe a refresher for someone else. So just, I think, just being vocal about it and making sure the topics are visible
mhm.
is one thing.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. D,
Yeah,
Raven?
and go ahead, Raven.
I'd say it's a lot of, and this isn't just. I mean, this is just in life. It's being a theater kid. It's the rule of improv. You always say yes and. So like, if I notice it's somebody and they're they're alone, or like they're unsure of their setting, like it's kind of clearly like their first con or near their first con, I'm always like, we're going to this panel. Do you want to go? Do you want to check out this subject? We're doing this. Would you like to join us? um it's that idea of saying like, yes, come on, join us, we're all doing the same thing here. you know and if
Mhm,
this is a subject that interests you, sure, come sit and chat with us about it. Come, you want to come play some board games? It's as simple as that. It's one of the easiest ways also to make friends at a con,
mhm,
is to just be like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing this, do you want to come?
mhm,
Well, I mean, the purpose of the convention is to bring like-minded people together. So talk, you know that they're there because they're kind of similar to you. But the encouragement is probably the best thing that all of us who've been in and around it the most is to encourage new people, to include them, to, make suggestions to help, to, have constructive interactions with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the one thing too
it's going to be on the people like us that do these panels to spread that. I mean, I always believe do unto others, first of all, but my life, I've decided that I need to be the kind of person I want to see in the world. So that's why you just go up to the people, talk to them. That's what's great about our hospitality suite. Like at MTAG, we have a whole room. People can come in and talk. And, if you're feeling stressed or anxiety ridden or whatever, you can come back there and we'll talk to you. We'll help you.
Yeah. I do think that
It's a safe space.
cons are trying. Most cons are really trying, and I do think that they are more aware of this issue of negativity and the fact that they really need to increase their image of inclusivity. Like they're becoming more cognizant of that, and they are taking steps to help foster safe spaces that are inclusive for everybody. A lot of them have implemented badges that staff and volunteers wear so that they're easily identifiable as someone that you go find if you have an issue or if you see someone else have an issue. And most of them have a kind of no tolerance policy for harassment and negative behavior. I'm finally seeing some cons really take a look at the people who are running their conventions and deciding whether or not they themselves foster safe and inclusive spaces for other people, and are making decisions to either include or remove people from their staff and volunteer lists. That's obviously not every con, and a lot of cons still have a really long way to go. And like Tenitia said, I feel like panels like this are a huge way to help kind of promote that and keep it present in their minds. Also, just feedback to conventions. If you see things happen that you think they could improve on for the next year, let them know. They make these conventions for you, so your feedback is 100% relevant to their interests. I promise you. And if they're not listening to their con goers, then they're not a good con. I think just promoting, telling people that you would like to see more broadly representative panels with people of different genders, races, body shapes. If it's a panel that I just let them know that you're not seeing what you would like to see from their convention, and a lot of them have been really responsive to that, I think. We are at the last 12-ish minutes or so, so I'd like to open up the floor to questions. I will try my best to keep an eye on the chat and field questions. But while we're waiting for some questions to come in, do you guys have any last quick statements you would like to offer to folks?
I am Lamp.
She is Lamp.
I guess just if you want to try cosplay, it's like dive in and do it. It's actually a meme that I saw on social media not too long ago. That I think sums up my feelings about a lot of it. It's stop breaking yourself into little pieces to accommodate other people. Stay whole and let them choke. And when they choke, they can die mad about it.
I feel like Tenitia just drops her mic and walks off.
I'm like, but I think that's generally kind of how I think I feel about the subject. Is like, yeah, you can be as weird as you want to be, and you can do you. And the people that have problems with it are in the minority, and they can just be mad somewhere else.
And those people might be louder than everyone else, but there are not more of them.
Correct.
They're louder because nobody's listening.
They're trying to get attention. We do have a question.
Yeah.
Before I get into the question, we had a lovely comment from Mary Sorensen saying that we are what makes a happy, silly, sexy, handsome, kind-hearted, non-judging of shapes, sizes, colors, geeks of diversity group. We're all different. Kindness is free. So that was
I
nice.
love Mary.
I do have a question. What's your favorite compliment you've ever gotten in costume?
Well, I've already kind of told you mine. It was my Batwoman costume the first time the girl, I mean, I was at DragonCon and she was across the room and I heard her yell for me and she cried. So there's no bigger compliment. And she just talked about how much she loved it and that she'd not seen it. This was back when she was just part of Detective Comics and not, on TV. So it was just, that was one of the best compliments. That and, costume college is the big thing for me. So
Absolutely.
when they complimented me with a scholarship,
Yeah.
that was it.
I think for me, mine is a similar. My favorite compliments come in two forms. One of which is a kid who insists I am whatever that character is, and they are sure of it. I have won in that moment. I won at life because they think I am Tinkerbell, and I can't convince them otherwise, and neither can anyone else. And that's great. And then the second favorite compliment I get is when people say they did like a double take on a photo because they thought it was a screen grab from a movie or a TV show. That always
Nice.
feels really good. What about you guys, Tanisha, Raven?
Well, I think mine is a little bit similar to what you were talking about. I've had run into people in costume and cons, and they're like, "Oh, I almost didn't recognize you."
Yeah.
It's like that makes you feel really good. You're like, okay, so like I'm not completely crap at this. You're like, I actually am. Like my skills are improving. They're getting better, and it's just a really cool thing to know that you are, actually successfully to whatever degree embodying what you were trying to embody. So it's a really nice feeling.
For
Well,
sure.
I'm a lot on the art side. I enjoy the making of the costumes and doing the different types of anywhere from armor to sewing. Sewing is good now. So when I get a compliment on a particular piece I made or something, and I've made some for other people too. So even when I hear them complimented on it, that's just wonderful.
Same. I would agree with that. We actually have a question that's kind of similar to that. The other Greek says, for me personally, I enjoy making things, but doubt I'd enjoy cosplay. I'm going to pause the statement from the other Greek and say, give it a shot, see how you feel. But the question is there a big community for people who only craft? Yes, there
Yes.
is.
Yes.
You can either
Oh,
sell
yeah.
those things that you make and have yourself a nice little side business that takes all your time and energy and feelings. Speaking from experience. Or if you're one of those people, I've met plenty of people who just like making things. They don't want to sell them. They make them with someone in mind. Most cosplayers will wear whatever the thing is you made lovingly with pride. So reach out to someone and say, hey, I've made this thing. Would you like it? And I guarantee you they'll say yes. So yeah,
Yeah.
huge
For
crafting, making
sure.
community, although I do encourage you at some point to put it on a thing and go out in public and see what happens. Um,
Yeah.
Let's see. Jeff Lester says it takes no effort, cost, or sacrifice to be nice, whereas to
Jeff.
make someone feel bad, it takes premeditated effort, negative energy, and generally a jealousy to say or do something hurtful. Thank you, Jeff. I agree.
And a Scorpio.
Yeah. So true.
Any other questions from anybody? We only have a couple of minutes, so I just want to make sure everyone. Abigail, my daughter Abigail loves you, Ginger. She wants to know what cosplay has been your favorite. Geez. I think Sarah from Labyrinth, her ball gown, is one of my favorite cosplays because it
One of
gets
my favorites.
reactions
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
That was
not only the
beautiful. It's
people.
absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
I get reactions not only from people who know what Labyrinth is and who recognize me and get super excited about that, but then I also, I guess, just look like a lovely princess or something to children who have no idea what Labyrinth is, and they just get excited about the fact that I've got big hair and a big dress, and they're into it. So that one's really fun because I just get to run around and look confused a lot. And I'd mentioned Tinkerbell earlier. I really like Tinkerbell because I don't have to talk, and that's really fun, and I can get into a lot of trouble. So that's a lot of fun. We have a question. Where would you like to see cosplay go beyond conventions? Oh, that's a really fun question. You guys have any answers? Where do you think cosplay could go other than conventions?
I'd like to see it travel along the path of like fantasy makeup has. I feel like it kind of started with cosplay melee a little bit, but like where people really get a chance to see the effort that goes into it, not just the result of it. And like something like I could see like making it on NBC, but cosplay where they're just like, here's a bag of random stuff, make a costume. And then people actually get to see that kind of creative process. I think if people could see more of that, it could open a lot more for the hobby itself.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
There was that steampunked show, which was essentially that, but specifically
mhm.
for steampunk
Yeah.
craft, and I think it was only the one season. But I definitely, as I'm at like a push-pull within myself about saying anything about reality television, but I really love reality competition television. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I'd love to see some sort of mainstream cosplay, um, watch these people actually do the thing, kind of
Yeah,
show.
not just wear the
Yeah, that would
thing.
be
Just
cool. That would be cool. I think that one of the things that I would like to see cosplay do, and it's kind of already being done to different degrees, is kind of how just cosplay like in everyday life. How you're starting to see now a lot of clothing brands and clothing lines are doing pieces that emulate some kind of cosplay or some kind of costume, and then cosplay going into other areas. Like I'm a huge fan of like RuPaul's Drag Race and stuff like that. And you see a lot of those queens are like amazing nerds, and they do their
Yes.
cosplay and they match up drag with cosplay and
Mhm.
nerddom, and like it integrates into so other many art forms. That's always an awesome thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. We have time for a couple more questions. I have one that is, what is one cosplay you haven't done yet, but everyone tells you that you look like that character? Miss seeing you all. That's from Casually Cosplaying, for those of you who know who that is. So what's the one thing that people keep telling you over and over again? Quickly, what's the one thing you hear over and over again that you should do but you haven't done?
I keep getting told to do Doctor Strange, but
I support that.
I don't know if I look like him. But I put the pattern together, so maybe, who knows?
Raven, what about you?
I have to ask my husband. I don't know.
Oh my God, Tanisha.
That's what I'm trying to like rack my brain, and I can't really. Uh, I think it's with me because I kind of don't really have a specific thing I do. I kind of just do random stuff,
Mhm.
and so I yeah, I'm not really sure
Uh,
off the top of my head. I know it's a
Yeah,
horrible answer. I'm
my
sorry.
my husband was saying Urza from Fairy Tale, and I was like, yeah, it's usually something that it's a show I don't watch or a comic I haven't read
yeah,
yet. So
yeah,
usually that's like I'm like that's why I haven't done the character. I don't know the character. Who are you
yeah.
talking about?
I think the ones I hear most often are just any redhead in fandom, any vaguely redheaded character or actor.
Yup.
I That's what I hear. So I'll get around to them all eventually, but I prefer wigs because I don't like brushing my own hair. Um, let's see. Last question we will take. The other Greek. I've had a few conversations recently with a good friend about my dislike of a lot of CGI in movies, how much I love practical effects. I agree with you. Do you think the popularity of cosplay will also influence other media areas in the future? Um, I think there are already some pretty spectacular examples of brilliant costuming out in media. I'm looking at you, The Witcher. There are just some really beautifully made costumes that are
Hmm.
actually making it
Yes.
onto screen right now, and I do think that cosplay has actually helped push that along. I noticed this when I watched what is the name of that show? The Other Guys? Is that what it's called? I don't remember what it's called. Homelander? What is the name of that show? Someone help
Oh,
me.
The Boys.
The Boys, thank you.
The Boys,
When I
there we
looked
go,
at
yes.
Homelander's costume and the patterning and the way that it was sewn, all I could think was their costume designer was maniacally laughing and going, "Screw you, cosplayers. This is gonna suck." Because there's no reason.
Oh my God.
There's no reason for some of the things that they did other than I think just to make all of our lives who are trying to recreate costumes difficult.
That's exactly what
That's
I was
awesome.
thinking when Star Trek Discovery first started and they came
Yes.
out with the new uniform.
Yep.
Because the pattern looks dotted, but it's actually tiny Federation insignias in a row
Yeah.
over and over and over again. And it's like, why?
Just
Why?
too
It's
much.
beautiful, but why?
Yeah. I think we've also seen a lot of the, special effects artists and costume artists in Hollywood starting to work a lot together too,
Yeah.
which I think honestly is basically cosplay.
I think they're starting to step up their game because they've seen amazing cosplays and they're like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah,
guys,
exactly.
we're actually at the end of our time, and I'm both sad and excited because I'm excited about how many of you guys showed up and hung out, and I love my other panelists. I'm sad that we have to bring this to an end. I will say, several of us on this panel, plus some others, will be doing Cosplay 101 on this Twitch channel and on Facebook Live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central. So if you guys are around, and honestly, where are you going unless you have a job that you absolutely have to be going to right now? I'd love to see you
That's
there.
true.
I hope everyone is healthy and safe and appropriately distanced. And I will see you guys later. Thank you guys all for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this was
Yes,
fun.
thank you very
Bye.
much.
Love
This has
you.
been fun.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.